Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at the beat repeat effect. This is the third tutorial in our Ableton Live Audio Effects series. We've already looked at the auto filter and the auto pan, so if you haven't seen those already, you can have a look on the YouTube channel. So for this particular tutorial, we're going to be using this track. So I'm going to nick that effect off of there because the tail's fairly long on that one. So we'll do this over two videos because beat repeat is a fairly complex audio effect. The first tutorial, we're going to just have a look. There we go. First tutorial, we're just going to have a look at exactly how the beat repeat works. And in the second tutorial, we'll use it in the track in a more practical environment. Now, the second tutorial we're going to chuck up on the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/quantize courses. There are already daily tips on there. There'll be exclusive videos, free racks to download, all sorts of other things. So check that out if you haven't seen it already. So we've got two sounds, very, very basic, and we're going to loop them up over the space of one bar. So quite different, so you can easily hear what's going on. So the beat repeat effect essentially records audio into its buffer and then spits out slices of audio that we've determined how long they are and how long we want them to repeat for. The first parameter is the interval parameter. And this is what is the frequency that we want beat repeat to start recording into its buffer. So at the moment, once every bar, it's going to restart recording audio into its buffer. And then it's going to repeat out that audio and it will basically record into the buffer. And after a period of time that you've set by the grid parameter, in this case 1/8, it will start to throw out repeats and it will make those repeats 1/8 long also. So let's have a listen to this. So you can hear it's not repeating this one at all. Instead, at the beginning of every bar, it's taking it's starting to record audio into the buffer, and after 1/8 of time, it starts to throw out repeats that are 1/8 in length. If we wanted it to instead start the recording here and start spitting out pieces of audio from this particular sound, we'd need to adjust the offset. So the offset is how long does it wait before it starts recording the audio into its buffer. So if I set this to 8/16, i.e. half a bar, we would expect it to start recording there, wait 1/8 until it starts spitting out repeats and start spitting out repeats that are 1/8 in size. So let's give that a go. Okay, all good so far. So I'm going to put that back to an offset of 0, so it will start to record this particular sound here. It will spit out repeats for a length as set by the gate parameter at the bottom here. Now, it's important to realize this is not the number of repeats it will spit out, it's how long will the beat repeat be working for. And that includes the time that it's taking that initial slice. So in this case, we've got it set to a half a bar, but we can literally take this up to 4 bars, much, much shorter if we like. Then we've got the chance parameter. This essentially is what is the chance that beat repeat's actually going to do anything at all. It's pretty obvious. If it's at 0%, beat repeat won't do anything. 100%, it will always work. And obviously you can randomize that in between. So I'll take the gate back to half a bar. And let's have a look at the variation control. So for this, I'm going to remove the second sound. And actually, let's put this gate parameter up to a whole bar, give ourselves a few more repeats to play with. So the variation is essentially rolling the dice. It's randomizing this grid parameter, and it randomizes around the setting that you have made. So if we set it at 1/8, and we turn up the randomization a little bit, we'd expect it to potentially spit out some eighths sometimes, maybe some sixth note values, maybe some quarter note values, and a little bit in the other direction as well. So you can hear it's not varying too much, but if I whack this up really high, then we'd expect it to make full use of the range of this grid parameter. So you can hear that we're getting a wide range of different values for the grid there. Now, on top of this, there are also a couple of other parameters sitting underneath our grid and variation. The first one, no triplets, fairly self-explanatory. It will ignore triplet values and instead it will push it up to the next value. So in this case, if we had 12th notes selected here, it would ignore that and it would instead play 8th notes. And that applies also for the variation. It will completely ignore triplet values. Underneath the variation, there are some slightly more interesting controls. At the moment, it's set to trigger, which means that every time we come round to the interval value, it will roll the dice again and we'll get a different grid amount, providing we've got this variation turned up, of course. If we set it to one of the actual beat values underneath, it will wait for that period of time before rolling the dice again. So let's select quarter on here. And every quarter of a bar will expect it to have changed the size of the audio repeats that we're hearing, or the length of them, should I say. So you can hear that that can get pretty funky fairly quickly. There's also at the bottom auto, which is complete mayhem. After every slice, it rolls the dice. So this will just be complete bedlam. But nevertheless quite interesting. So let's take the variation off for now, and we'll look at the other parameters, which are much, much easier to get your head around. The first one is pitch. If we turn this up, as soon as beat repeat starts repeating, so not whilst it's taking that first little slice, but after the grid value, the very next slice, it's going to pitch that down by an amount that we select on the pitch control. And then the pitch decay, this will pitch each preceding slice down by an amount. And it's exactly the same setup with the volume here, so we won't go over that, but it does identical stuff, but just to the volume, obviously. The filter, really obvious. It's only applied to the repeats, though. So you can hear that original slice completely unaffected there. And then finally, we just have a selection of controls here which determine how we hear the wet signal, how we hear those repeats interacting with the dry signal. So when we've got that set to mix, we hear the dry signal and we hear the repeats. So if I just throw this in here, you can hear that dry signal going on as well as the time that it's repeating. So it's taking a slice, it's starting to replay those repeats back over this period of time, but we're also hearing what's going on underneath. We're hearing that dry signal that it's not slicing. If we select insert, then when it starts playing the repeats, it silences whatever's going on underneath. So in this case, we can't hear it at all. When we select gate, we only hear the repeats. We don't hear anything other than repeats at all. So we won't even hear this original piece of sound here. Just the time that it's repeating. Other than that, it's muting everything else in its entirety. So that's the beat repeat and all of the different controls and how they interact. There's one other parameter to look at, and that's just this repeat button here. And when you punch this in, beat repeat will start to repeat, and it ignores all of the interval, offset, gate, and chance controls because we don't need them. Ultimately, we're telling it when it's going to start repeating, when it's going to stop repeating. So we're not rolling any kind of dice at all whatsoever, or need to tell it for how long it's going to do it, because it's us that's actually doing that manually. But it does take into account all of the other parameters that we've set here. So if I put, for example, the filter on and we put the pitch decay on and we'll leave it at 8th note slices. I'm just going to take the chance off actually, because we don't want it to be doing any repeating automatically on its own. So in a nutshell, that's how the beat repeat works. We'll be looking at it again and discussing the parameters in an actual practical environment to go over how some of these controls can interact with each other and how it can be useful for spicing up your tracks. So once again, that's going up on the Facebook page. It's facebook.com/quantize courses. Also, if you want some daily tips, find out what's going on in the world of Ableton, we've got our Twitter page, which is twitter.com/quantize courses. Take care. Till the next time.